It's easy to sit back and think about the news that we see and read, but what about the news that we don't? Ever think about how people are fed such different stories based on the same event? Today, we will be talking about the most deceptive of all the bias types, omission bias. With the mass amounts of modern media available today, it would be crazy to suggest that someone would have the time to comb through it all. Our perception is our reality, and media jockeys use this to their advantage when presenting us our news. Ever heard the saying that there are two sides to every story? This type of bias works directly against that. Selecting and omitting facts from a story changes the whole perception of an event. Omitting a story altogether also sends a strong message about how an event, if at all, is meant to be perceived. In such cases, this manipulation tool is useful to both sway or enforce the opinions of readers. Along with the authors and media platforms that distribute biased news, we as individuals are also inclined to seek out media that reinforces our own biases. We cater to our own inherent biases and interests through the selection and omission of certain media outlets, typically when it comes to politics. If you are a big fan of Trump, you aren't going to get your Trump news from CNN, are you? Our opinions are easily formed based on the facts that we are presented with. When reading an article or news source, it is nearly impossible to tell if there are any facts left out. This is why selection and omission tactics are the most deceptive out of all the possible biases. It is easy for authors to exclude alternate sources that may not align with their own views in order to get their point across. And the worst part of all of this? The average reader has no idea. Examples of this type of bias can only be seen by looking at two different articles from two different news sources on the same topic. First, let's have a look at two different articles detailing the death of Breonna Taylor. A CNN article detailing a timeline of the police raid include the following detail about the start of the home raid. Taylor and Walker yelled to ask who was at the door but got no response, Walker said afterward. Thinking they were intruders, Walker grabbed a gun he legally owned and fired a shot when the officers broke through the door. Now, let's take a look at what an article from Fox News had to say on this incident. They used a no-knock search warrant to break down the door and were met with gunfire from Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. As we can see, the article by CNN includes details about the raid that explain to the audience why Kenneth Walker began firing at police. On the other hand, by omitting these details, the author of the Fox article makes it sound like Walker went on the offense against officers, as opposed to him defending himself and his girlfriend from supposed intruders. Also notice how the CNN article includes the detail that the firearm used was, in fact, a legally owned firearm. By omitting this detail altogether, the Fox author leaves it up to the reader to interpret why they had the gun in the first place, painting an entirely different picture of the event in readers' minds. Let's have a look at another example. A Fox News article talking about the recent Black Lives Matter movements presents the following fact. Protests and riots following the 2020 killing of Floyd resulted in at least 18 deaths, $350 million worth of property damage in the Minneapolis area, and nearly $2 billion nationwide. However, a CNN report on the same topic includes that following information. About 93% of racial justice protests in the US since the death of George Floyd have been peaceful and non-destructive, according to a new report. Although these articles are both speaking on the same event, we are presented with two vastly different sets of facts. Each author chose to include data that supports their own views on the subject, while omitting facts that would oppose their message. As it has been pointed out through selection and omission tactics, we must be wary of the biased information we are presented. Stay vigilant and know how the facts shape your own opinions with Biasly.